Hello everyone, my name is Brianna Doss, and today I'm going to be presenting my final project, which is on gender stereotypes and their impact on career choices and workplace experiences. So before I introduce this topic, I first want to give a little information on why I decided to research this topic in particular by giving you the purpose of my project. The purpose of this project is to make people aware of the issue of gender stereotypes and to educate those who are intimidated by the role gender has within different fields. I believe that by making this issue more well known, it will eliminate the stigma and encourage both men and women to go on to the careers that they are passionate about instead of the preconceived career that society has for them. Now that you have been introduced to the why of my project, I want to introduce you to the what. Many topics will be discussed throughout this project. Before I can dive into those topics, it is important to know what gender stereotypes are. I will be quoting tolerance.org to define this term. Gender is defined as the state of being male or female. Gender also refers to the social roles, behaviors, and traits that a society may assign to men and women. It is important to note here that this is a working definition and that there are many different ideas considered when defining the term gender. Secondly, we have the definition of stereotype, which is defined as an oversimplified and/or unfair belief or idea that groups of people have particular characteristics or that all people in a group are the same. Therefore, putting these definitions together, a gender stereotype is an oversimplified belief or idea that a certain gender should have particular characteristics or that they should act a certain way simply based off of their gender. Gender stereotypes are frequently seen in the workplace and have been proven to impact not only the experiences people have at work, but also the career they decide to join in the first place. Therefore, this issue affects not only adults, but those in middle school, which is when career identity starts to form. Gender stereotypes in general start much younger. And this is what leads me into my first topic. So this slide covers gender stereotypes in early childhood. Although this project focuses on gender stereotypes in the workplace and in career choice, I want to include this information to show just how long we are exposed to gender stereotypes before we even begin to think about our careers. My main focus with this section was reading an article titled Progression on Nickelodeon: Gender Role Stereotypes in Toy Commercials. Its purpose is to determine whether toy commercials promulgate traditional gender role stereotypes to children who are in the formative stages of developing gender schemas, identities, and values. I included this quote from the article to show why gender stereotyping in toys has such a strong influence. Although many people disregard toys as simply playthings, critical examination reveals them to carry social significance. This just explains a little bit of why I chose to study toy commercials in relation to my topic. This article discusses many different things, but for the purpose of this presentation, I want to narrow down on the terms of setting in the toy commercials and how they were different between the boys and the girls. This can be seen in the table presented and can be summarized by this quote from the article. In terms of setting, girls only tended to be shown in the home, whether in bedrooms, kitchens, nurseries, or bathrooms, or in other indoor settings. When shown outdoors, they were located in backyards, gardens, and parks, shopping centers, and amusement parks, which served as backdrops for their caretaking, gossiping, and courting. I found this very interesting that the girls-only commercials were almost always in an indoor setting, and even when they were in an outdoor setting, it was simply a background for traditional female activities. This article also summarizes the idea that boys only were also shown indoors. However, when they were indoors, they were engaged in some type of activity. The author includes the fact that the findings suggest that boys' roles are socially distributed, as their diversified locations imply that they have more opportunities, action, and life chances. Next, I want to talk about career identity. Through my research, I discovered that career identity begins in middle school. One study done by the Simmons School of Management concluded that in the face of prevalent gender stereotypes in society, the career choices of middle schoolers tend to be highly gendered. It concluded that the majority of boys, 91%, would only consider male-dominated jobs, while many girls would consider both. 74% of girls chose male-dominated jobs as their first choice. The article pointed out that this is probably because of the fact that male-dominated jobs pay more and have a higher status. It also mentioned that males are less likely to take on female-dominated careers because of society's lower tolerance for men and boys to work in feminine jobs. The second article I read in relation to career identity spoke about a study done by Miller and Hayward in 2006. This study had similar results to that of the first. English adolescents perceived emerging professions like engineering as being more appropriate to the male gender, while traditional jobs such as nursing were held to be more suitable for women. It also summarized that girls believed that both genders could do both traditional and emerging jobs. These findings aligned with those of the first article. Next, I want to talk about gender-dominant career fields. Before I can dive into the careers that are dominated by gender, I first want to explain the difference between pink-collar and blue-collar jobs. A pink-collar job is defined as a job that is traditionally done by women, and this term was named during the World War II when women were filling roles such as nurses, secretaries, and teachers. A blue-collar job is defined as a job that focuses more on the worker's physical capability than their mind. This term was given in 1912 in Iowa and was characterized by the typical uniform that was worn by laborers. A common pink-collar job is a nurse. Only 9% of nurses are male in the United States. This could possibly be because of the history of modern-day nursing. The founder of modern-day nursing, Florence Nightingale, believed that men were incapable of being nurses. In fact, some men were not even admitted into nursing school until 1982, and that was only because the Supreme Court ruling that forced them to. A common blue-collar job is engineering. Women are seen less in professions in engineering. They make up only about 14% of engineers, but this number has steadily grown, as it was only 5.8% in the 1980s. The number of women in the engineering field is steadily increasing. However, there are still problems with women in engineering, as there is a lack of female role models in the industry, which leads to women feeling unwelcome, as they describe the workplace as a boys' club. Another reason that women are less likely to go into engineering is because of the fact that it is a very demanding job. Some females find it hard to keep up with while also wanting to start a family. So after a little bit of introduction to the fact that men and women tend to avoid careers that are dominated by the opposite gender, I now will explain a little bit about the gender stereotyping issues that women face in male-dominated careers. Catalyst.org states that one of the challenges that women face in careers where they are the minority is being seen as the office, housekeeper, or caring mother. This leads them to feeling like their role is more about taking care of the office and taking care of their fellow colleagues than it is to be respected for them for their position. Secondly, women face sexual harassment in the workplace. In a survey done in 2017, 62% of women working in male-dominated industries reported sexual harassment, while only 46% of women working in female-dominated industries reported sexual harassment. Thirdly, there are fewer opportunities and a lack of female role models for females in male-dominated industries. Fewer opportunities come from the view that women are outsiders. This correlates with the lack of female role models, which impacts the comfort level of women working in male-dominated fields. Throughout this process of researching, I found that women cope with these challenges in different ways. Surprisingly, they distance themselves from colleagues, especially other women. You wouldn't think that they would distance themselves from the other colleagues who are female. However, they do, in fact, isolate themselves, and they do this in addition to accepting masculine culture norms. This perpetuates the problem by normalizing gender stereotypes. Women are not the only ones that face challenges in careers where they are the minority. Men also face challenges, and a lot of the times I feel like this is not spoke out spoke about as much. The first challenge that men face, according to Catalyst.org, is that they are perceived as unable to be compassionate and or caring. We saw a prime example of this when I discussed the founder of nursing believing that men should not be nurses because she believed that they lacked compassion. Another challenge that men face is a lack of support from family and friends. Because of society's idea of what fields men and women should work in, men often struggle with finding support from their family and friends when they enter a non-traditional career. Just like women, men also suffer from a lack of male role models in female-dominated careers. It is harder for males to relate to female mentors in their field. This leads to isolation because men can feel like they don't fit in and they can't relate to the things that their women counterparts talk about. Lastly, men can experience unwanted attention. This is similar to how women face sexual harassment in the workplace, more often when they are in male-dominated careers. It is much harder to find statistics on the unwanted attention that affects males in female-dominated careers. I think this in itself speaks for the underrepresentation of this problem and how it affects men. Now that the facts have been given, all the way from how gender stereotypes begin to infiltrate our minds at a young age, to how it impacts our career identity, and finally to how it affects our experiences in the workplace, I will now summarize why I believe we should reduce the role that gender has in the workplace. First and foremost, gender stereotypes limit us in what we believe we are capable of. Clearly, research has proven that oftentimes adolescents block out careers from their mind as an option, simply based off the gender stereotypes that surround the career. An informal survey was done on IU Southeast students that included 39 participants. 34 of those participants were female. As you can see in this graph, 14 out of 39 students surveyed somewhat agreed that gender stereotypes have an influence on their career choice. Of those 14 students, 12 were female, which means that only 2 were men. In total, 18 of the participants either agreed or somewhat agreed or strongly agreed with this statement. Is it fair that 46% of the students in this survey feel that gender stereotypes had an impact on what they chose to do for the rest of their lives? While completing this research and seeing the statistics, I couldn't help but connect what I was reading to what we previously read in Fighting Fire by Caroline Paul. Caroline experienced a lot of pressure going into the male-dominated field of firefighting. She experienced this pressure from others, but I feel like a lot of the pressure she felt was from herself. On page 33 of the book, Caroline had just graduated Fire Academy and was entering the fire station. She heard a voice in her head saying, "You won't fit in. You are not a fireman." These thoughts were influenced by gender stereotypes as they make us believe that we are incapable of accomplishing things because of our gender. Caroline also feared that her father would not support her decision, and this reflects what I found in my research about challenges that men and women face when they enter a career dominated by the opposite gender. Throughout my research for this project, I learned a lot about gender stereotypes and the many different ways they can affect us as people and how we think and how we plan our future throughout our career. I have narrowed down some of the key findings that I found most important for you all to take away from my research. The first one being the most obvious. Gender stereotypes do heavily influence the environments of different workplaces as well as our career choices. Secondly, gender stereotypes begin having an influence on us as children. This is seen through the study on toy commercials and the roles that the girls and boys had within them. Thirdly, we see that career identity begins in children in middle school. It was also revealed that boys are typically more aware of gender stereotypes, and they tend to avoid female-dominated careers, while females are more apt to go for jobs in male-dominated careers because of the prestige and higher pay that often comes with the positions. Another conclusion that I came to, which people often fail to realize, is that both men and women face challenges in the workplace when they work in careers dominated by the opposite gender. Overall, I gained a lot from completing this project. I love to look at statistics for different things because statistics are definite, which makes it easier for me to draw conclusions. When I started this project, I knew that gender stereotypes were a problem in the workplace. However, I did not realize the extent of this problem until I began to look at the statistics and realized that they began to affect career identity in children as young as middle schoolers. That was a real eye-opener to me. And reading the studies done on adolescents showed me how huge the problem really is. Thank you all, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask me.